Why do they grow birds' nests with a special trepidation? How did leafcutter ants turn into experienced farmers? Where's the place located that teems with dangerous snakes? I'll tell you about it now. In this episode, you'll learn about the most unusual farms in the world. Isla de Quemada Grande. Do these words tell you about anything? If not, take my congratulations. Your mental health is most likely to be safe and sound. Seriously, Ilha Queimada Grande is the name of a Brazilian island in the Atlantic Ocean that locals jokingly call the biggest natural serpentarium. Yes, it's inhabited by snakes. Interestingly, there are not tens and not even hundreds of them. The island is literally stuck in these frightening creatures. The area of Ilha Queimada Grande is about 4.6 million square feet. This didn't prevent it from becoming one of the most dangerous places on the planet. There are so many creepers here that when I saw this place for the first time, I thought they were bred there, just like on a farm. Incidentally, local snakes are not simple. Among the endemics of these lands is the golden lancehead. As a result of its sting, the victim's tissues quickly die off, and this causes renal impairment, gastrointestinal bleeding, as well as brain hemorrhage. In a simple language, the sting will send the enemy to glory due to different kinds of pain, or in 7% of cases, it delivers him to the sky within minutes without any transfers. It's exactly the extreme danger that made the authorities ban ordinary people from visiting the island. There are only experienced researchers that visit it exclusively for scientific purposes. A second reason why this snake farm is closed for others is the preservation of flora and fauna. As I've already said, golden lanceheads develop there, so these snakes cannot be encountered anywhere else. Possibly they like the Brazilian climate as well as the fact that they own a whole island, but it not be the biggest one. Would you like to take a walk along it in a company of specialists if you had such an opportunity? Write in the comments. Let's move on and have a look at surprising ants that turn out to be good farmers, like people. They're called leafcutter ants, and they live in rainforests of South America. Each scientist will find something interesting about them by presence. Some of them, for example, will like that they tend to collect greens. As far as I'm concerned, the main trick of these creatures is, of course, their level of development. Many people call them one of the most evolutionary developed creatures on the planet. These ants seem to be simple. They learned to come to conclusions based on their own experience. They decided that it's not the most generous thing to chase after food. You stand a risk of failing or just wasting too much energy. So it's better to grow things you can eat. Yes, you're right. These ants intentionally practice agriculture. The principle of creation of a plantation is not so simple, whatever it may seem to you at the first glance. First, these shrewd animals cut down all the leaves around, and they carry them to their formicary. Then they properly chew everything that they brought and create a special substrate for growing mushrooms. This seems to be the end. Let mushrooms grow and feed all the residents of the ant nest with fresh champignon stew. As soon as the first mushrooms appear from the soil, they're cut and thrown away. Ants do not eat them. Insects are exclusively interested in the mushroom house. It's not difficult to guess that this is the peculiarity of ants. As soon as it became known in the wide circles, it made them almost the main candidates for the title of favorite ones. Everybody wanted to have not some pests close to its farm, but ants that will grow mushrooms. Aquafarm. Tell me, what comes to your mind first when you hear this word? Maybe a small aquarium? Or a tiny pond where they breed big-head carps? Yes, it's quite possible that there is such a thing in the world, but all this is quite usual, and it cannot surprise you with anything. On the other hand, this aquafarm in Norway, believe me, will boggle your mind. According to independent experts, it can be considered one of the most advanced and at the same time innovative farms on the planet. It's located several miles away from the shore at a great depth. Those who built it say that in such a place, water circulates much better and no accidental contamination occurs. They breed salmon there. Essentially, this is a great structure in the shape of a big half-submerged circle that's more than 325 feet in diameter. It's located at a depth of about 1,000 feet, and it's prepared prepared for any natural disasters. Up to 1.5 million fish a year are grown on this farm. That being said, it's just 7 workers that are needed to make the farm function. Want to contribute to all this? First of all, it's water oxidation. For this process, less dangerous oxidants than chlorine and nitrogen are used. In the long run, dangerous bacteria are destroyed, and in the majority of cases, they do not harm water or mammals. What's more, I don't know if it's true or not, they say that over recent years, they've been practicing an innovative way of fish spawn extraction. The maturity of spawn is determined by special sensor probes. Before they collect spawn, they introduce special ferments to the body of the fish that strengthen the surface of spawns. As a result of such filtering, 100% of fish survive. This gives them an opportunity to live long and happily and to give offspring. As for fish catching, it does not apply a trail net. That means the application of an ordinary net. In other words, a trail that's towed by a special ship. This given method definitely is one of the most effective in the world. However, it's not excluded that different, unnecessary mammals may fall into the net. Apart from that, because of excessive pressure, the fish can suffer. This will cause the underwater habitat to worsen. As an alternative, people from our aqua farm started to apply trail bags. They consist of a lighter material, they decrease the bottom pressure, and they reduce the injuring effect. Guinea pig. Yes, it turns out people also grow them. Interestingly, however hard I may have tried to find out for what reason, I didn't manage to do this. This wonder takes place on one of the Norwegian farms. Apart from our staple, other creatures such as goats, rams, pigs, and hens are also bred there. Needless to say, all the attention is focused on guinea pigs. There are up to 100 of them. All of them live in an open garden all the year round, and they don't know what a cramped cage is. These animals overnight in a shelter, a small wooden house where they don't have to worry about predators and the cold. When the morning comes, they leave the shelter to start a day with breakfast, seeds that hens are also fed with. As soon as the first part of the day, and at the same time the most important one, comes to a logical end, they'll disperse around the whole perimeter of the garden and they'll do everything that'll come to their bright mind. They don't have any restrictions. Guinea pigs can visit sheep, they can look at things happening in the garage, or, for example, go to the neighboring forest. It's worth saying that guinea pigs are rather careful, and they do not try to go far from their shelter or high bushes where you can always stay. While farm dwellers do not pay any attention to the pigs, they're always raptor birds patrolling the territory. When they notice that someone lagged behind the flock, they experience a real trigger in their heads. However, there were no accidents on this farm, at least no one reported on them. That's why I'll risk coming to the conclusion that guinea pigs develop leisurely and they gradually increase their population. I'll leave the question of what they're needed for to people open. I have no idea about it. Let's have a rest and look at the subscriber shot. The man sent me a photo of his kitten and asked us to help make out the name for it. If anything, it's a female. As far as I'm concerned, it's rather nice and cute. So we should give it a corresponding name that suits its snout. Write your versions in the comments. On our next farms I'll tell you about, pigeons are bred. Yes, we'll talk about pigeonries. Take it from me, you've never known things I'd like to mention now. I start with the fact that pigeons by themselves were in demand a long time ago, even in the time of ancient Egypt. Over thousands of years, Egyptian people bred pigeons for both sporting considerations and to eat them, whereas manure of these birds was thought to be valuable. As evidence to my words, pigeon breeding was depicted on hieroglyphs and Mesopotamian cuneiform tablets that are 5,000 years old. A lot of time's passed since that. What was in ancient Egypt cannot be an indicator of truth and practicality. However, we don't have to go far and we can look at pigeonries from the Soviet Union. In the bygone years, they were considered an integral part of a typical household. Everything started more than 200 years ago. It's the Duke Alexei Orlov, the associate of the Russian Empress Ekaterina the Great, who is thought to be the first pigeon breeder in Russia. His peasants bred a special breed of pigeons, the white termins, and his success brought him freedom. Orlov presented the most beautiful pigeons to the Empress, and she got interested in these birds. No, the noblemen didn't build their own farm for their growth. This was left to bored landowners. It's just in the beginning of the 20th century that it became omnipresent. By this time, the Russian Society of Pigeon Sports had come into being. Alas, because of the events connected with the war, many pigeons disappeared. They simply stopped breeding them for the reason of personal safety. What if the feathered creatures with a message had come into the hands of strangers. This way, the number of pigeons has considerably reduced. However, the events of the 1950s changed the situation. In particular, it's Pablo Picasso who made a contribution to the pigeon revolution. Then the World Festival of Youth and Students was about to take place in Moscow. The painter made up a special symbol for it, the pigeon of peace. The city could not but give a good account of itself. On this occasion, everybody needed as many pigeons as possible. They planned to launch them at a ceremony as a sign of friendship and solidarity. This is when they began to restore all the pigeonries. You could hardly find a place where they didn't breed these birds. They did this on the roofs, over the shops and factories, at schools, and even in the yards. In the long run, they reached the goal. However, the Muscovites that got used to these wonderful birds didn't want to part with them. On the contrary, pigeon breeding turned into something like a cultural phenomenon. It went so far that people even stole birds from neighbors. The obsession with these birds ended only when the USSR collapsed. People had more other things and problems. They were not in the mood for this. Pearl. This is how a gemstone is called that literally all the girls on the planet love. Let girls alone, even many guys cannot resist the temptation. It's true, it looks surprising. Have you ever thought about how exactly people mine it? It turns out that pearls come from special mollusks that are grown on concrete farms on the industrial scale. One of them is located in the Pacific Ocean on Rietia Island. This place is of volcanic origin and it has a vast coral reef. And what's more, they mine Tahiti pearl there all year round. It's brought to the domestic or international market. It's a married couple that runs the business. They founded the base on the edge of the reef, and they got access to the deep sea part where they grow pearls. Under the water column, at a depth of 10 to 16.5 feet, there are tens of thousands of shells of certain mollusks. Because of crystal clear ocean water that they inhabit, the surface of the pearl becomes glossy together with special gleaming. Diameter of a mollusk can reach 12 inches with a weight of 11 pounds. On average, one shell can live up to 10 years, and within its time of existence, it brings 2 to 3 yields. Upon the expiration of the cultivation period, shells are either released into the ocean or they're used for their mother of pearl to produce nuclei in the folk art as well as in the design of decorations and in the interior. Interestingly, shells can be both male and female. It's important to know how to handle them properly. While preparing them for cultivation, farmers will cut the black edge of the mollusk lip. Following that, they'll embed the male nucleus in the female gonad. In simple language, the gonad is the analog of a woman's egg cell. They cut the lip in small pieces and pull off the trick with many female shells. A pearl comes into being just within 3 years. After this long period of time, a man will accurately, with the use of surgical tools, extract a pearl from the woman's gonad and place a nucleus in it to form another pearl. Then they'll be released into the water. Not all the shells are active and healthy for further cultivation. That's why many of them are thrown out after the extraction of the first pearl. Birds' nests. Remember these two words. As soon as you visit a country in Southeastern Asia, I strongly recommend that you should try them. If you don't know what it is and how it's created, I'll tell you about this now. In principle, we see what we hear. We can see birds' nests in front of us that majorly consists of saliva without any impurities or herbal inclusions. It's exactly why these birds are valued. Their nests are a tasty delicacy in Chinese cuisine. The very popular dish is soup with birds' nests. It's a jelly-like broth with inimitable aftertaste. I'll tell you at once, be ready for a relatively high price for this delicacy. The main thing is not to beat up and not to require a discount. Respect people's labor that made this sweetie possible to consume. The thing is that hunters that extract birds' nests are at a high risk. In wild nature, these creatures build their nests in caves at a great height. Apart from that, the bird is perfect at orienting itself in the darkness and its nests in inaccessible places. Fortunately, to minimize risks, people learned to build special farms to raise these feathered creatures. Pitch darkness dominates in such concrete constructions. They use sound equipment with different musical tracks to attract the birds. Some of them are designed to lure the birds to the house, others to create a comfortable atmosphere inside. To maintain a necessary smell in the room, they use poultry manure that was specially brought, the guano. In a simple language, people do everything that they're capable of to build a nest for these feathered creatures that will be the same as a natural one. Experts seem to succeed in doing so. You're still tuned into It's Wild. Later on, I'll tell you about the record big giant animals. Cassius. This is the name of the large saltwater crocodile that we're going to talk about. No, Cassius is not just large, it's one of the largest, and also one of the oldest crocodiles in the world. Since 2011, Cassius has held the title of the Guinness Book of Records as the world's largest captive crocodile. No one knows Cassius's exact age, but people speculate that he's over 110 years old. For such a long time, he managed to grow to an unthinkable 18 feet, or rather, that was the length Cassius had in 2011 when he made it into the Book of Records. Today, he may well be larger. It's just that people are afraid to get in touch with him and take measurements. According to zoo workers who look after the animal at Australia's Crocodile Park, there are two factors that indicate Cassius may actually be much larger than the length recorded in the Guinness Book of Records. Firstly, such crocodiles grow throughout their lives. Secondly, when Cassius was found, he was fighting with other males and lost part of his tail and snout during the battle. Would you like to see this giant in person? Write in the comments. Malaysian python. Pythons are quite large snakes, which, on average, have a length of 5 feet to 16 feet. However, I'm not afraid of the word. A real monster found in Malaysia has broken records and become a source of unforgettable sensations for people. The huge reptile was found by workers at a construction site near the popular tourist island of Penang. They noticed the snake lurking near a tree and immediately called the special service. At that moment, all the workers realized that with this giant, they could not cope without help. The professionals who arrived at the site worked for another 30 minutes to catch the snake and finally achieved what they wanted. The Malaysian python, which was 26 feet long and weighed about 550 pounds, was no longer a threat to civilians. What's even more amazing in this story is that the snake in front of the workers was the longest snake ever recorded, except that the record was never awarded to her. As authorities later reported, the snake died 3 days after being caught, after laying an egg the day before. What caused its death is not fully known. But come on, don't be upset. There are still chances that the same large snake will grow from her egg, which will take the first place in size. Hercules. Who do you imagine when you hear about the largest cat? No, I'm not talking about pet cats. I mean lions, tigers, and other wild cats. But okay, you don't have to guess because the largest cat is Hercules, a hybrid of a lion and a tiger. This feline was born in 2002 at the Florida Institute for Endangered and Rare Species. According to the workers of the center, the liger has good health and is expected to live for a long time. Hercules' muzzle resembles his lion father, and his body has noticeable stripes like his tiger mother. The record-breaking cat has no mane and also inherited from his mother an incredibly high speed of movement and the ability to swim. In 2006, Hercules was entered into the Book of Records as the largest representative of felines living on Earth. Well, to maintain his shape, he eats more than 20 pounds of meat every day. His diet includes horse meat, beef, and poultry. All this has led to the fact that the cat has grown to a length of 12 feet and a weight of more than 900 pounds. And this is despite the fact that Hercules is an agile and healthy creature that does not suffer from excess weight. Giant shark. The fact that there are huge sharks in the world is known to everyone. However, almost always a big shark preys exclusively on plankton. That's just the way Mother Nature decides. Nevertheless, there are other giant sharks in nature which you wouldn't wish even your worst enemy to meet. One of them was caught off Phillip Island in 1970. The shark was 20 feet long and weighed 5,083 pounds. Although this is considered an absolute record, many doubt this event. Nothing like this had ever happened before. They say that this predator could have eaten a seal or someone else right before its capture, except no one's ever found any remnants in its stomach. It was, as many of you have already guessed, a great white shark. And 10 fishermen worked simultaneously to get it on board. For understanding, other representatives of this species have a length of no more than 16 feet and weighs a maximum of about a ton. It's even frightening to imagine what this enormous creature was capable of with his sharp teeth and murderous jaws. Moose on the road.
Look at this big fella.
When I first saw this video, I thought the moose on the road was a pure monument. They're usually made very large. But when the driver drove a little further and I realized that the moose was moving,
Hey there, bud.
I was speechless. Just imagine how much power that monster has. I mean, he could flip a car over. Besides, moose themselves are quite aggressive creatures that do not tolerate bad attitude. However, moose in Alaska are quite a common phenomenon. Animals freely walk around the state. Often these horned creatures come to visit local residents. Powerful animals cause delight and admiration. But still, this giant, caught in the camera lens, causes horror along with fear. Little John. This is the name of our next hero, about whom we're going to talk. It's a rooster of the breed Brahma, to which we'll return a little later. But for now, let's have a look at the feathered one. John is one of the largest roosters in the world. The little guy stood out from childhood and almost immediately switched to a special diet. His owner, Jeremy Goldsmith, saw a diamond in the bird. Jeremy took him to a free field where he was able to walk regularly and freely and bought the best and most nourishing feed. Although, as Goldsmith said in an interview, there are times when his friend's diet upsets, such as when children come to visit. They start feeding the rooster popcorn and other nasty things, which surprisingly he likes. Little John has been under the care of Jeremy Goldsmith since he hatched out of the egg, and it's thanks to him that he's reached a height of more than 26 inches. Oh yes, I almost forgot. In fact, the chickens of this breed, the Brahma, are large already by themselves from birth. They're adapted even to cool climates and do not require much walking. Not everything is clear where this breed came from, but in general, people believe that Brahmas originated from Asia and were selected in the United States. Moth. What? What does it have to do with this? Yes, I used to think so too, until I stumbled upon this fascinating footage. People from Australia have filmed a giant moth in the forest. The case was in Camp Mountain, east of Brisbane. The insect was crawling along the trunk of a tree. It was impossible to miss. Of course, as soon as this photo hit the web, it attracted the attention of many scientists. They made joint efforts to guess who it was there. It was not possible to give a definite answer. However, people assumed that the tourists had filmed a giant moth. This butterfly is considered one of the heaviest in the world. Females weigh up to 1.1 ounces. They can grow up to 6 inches in length, and their wingspan is somewhere around 10 inches. River monster. The following story took place in Italy's Po River, the country's largest river in terms of catchment area and length. There, in 2015, brothers Dino and Dario Ferrari forever wrote their name into fishing history, at least locally. They managed to pull a giant catfish weighing over 286 pounds and 8.9 feet onto land in minutes. Dino and Dario released the catfish after taking a photo against the backdrop of the fearsome fish to prove their story, much to the delight of internet users. According to the fishermen, they calculated that the giant was about 30 years old, and representatives of his species can live up to 50 years. Well, how do you like such an unusual catch? Would you like to be in the place of the brothers? Write in the comments. And now I propose to look at the largest representatives of animals in principle. I'm sure they'll surprise you no less, so watch the video to the end. It'll be interesting. Giant stick insect. This insect is on the verge of extinction, but here you shouldn't be sad. On the contrary, you have to dance with joy. The fact is that not so long ago it was considered died out. For 80 years, the animal was discovered in the middle of the 19th century, and it immediately gained fame as the heaviest stick insect of the planet. Because of its amazing size, it had no natural enemies. However, this did not play in favor of its survival. It was the exact opposite. The walking leaves lost their wings and almost became extinct because of it. Rats settled in its native territory by chance and, as scientists believed, completely exterminated the species. But the little guy was not so simple. These bugs moved to an island a couple dozen miles from there. Their bodies were found by local climbers, but no special attention was paid to them. Nevertheless, rumors of mysterious arthropods stirred the imagination of scientists, They set out to study and finally found those who were thought to be extinct for about 80 years. It turned out that the insects fed on plants all this time and developed quite successfully. Several individuals were taken for breeding in Melbourne and Sydney. One of the couples died soon after that, but the second pair, symbolically named Adam and Eve, had offspring, albeit few. These stick insects were supplied with their favorite tea tree leaves, and now their numbers are gradually increasing. Giant forest hog. Did you know that big hogs are far from rare or accidental, especially when it comes to big woodland species? These piglets are considered the largest representatives of the family, whose size reaches 83 inches, with a height of 43 inches and a weight of 186 pounds. This giant monster lives in Africa. Its habitat stretches from Guinea to Tanzania, and here it's important to note at once that all those records in terms of size refer only to males. Females are about half the size in all respects. The pig is omnivorous, although it does have preferences, especially in vegetation. At the same time, males regularly have to stand up for the defense of the family. A family of about 20 individuals can be attacked by outsiders who want to take control, and any such attack is extremely dangerous. If you lose vigilance for a minute, the stranger will be quick to hit the skull of the male and smash it. The things you have to do to become the new master of the herd. But such intolerance does not apply only to ideological rivals. Any predator from small to large will get it if they dare to step on the territory, which is ruled by the main male, and it's better that no one even knows how angry and aggressive he can be. Even lions try to stay away from the big pig. Australia is an amazing place. It's home to many large creatures, but what about giant worms? Are you serious? Our next guest is called the giant earthworm. I'm going to go ahead and say that yes, it lives exclusively in Australia. Overall, this creature is an unremarkable worm. He has no deadly poison, no creepy jaws, no bloodthirsty habits. But there's one thing that makes it stand out, and that's its size. Of course, what else besides them can scare other local fauna? This abnormal animal grows from 31 inches to 10 feet in length, and all because there are no predators in its habitat that would like to eat it. So the worm develops to its fullest potential. Now add to that a favorable warm climate, humidity, plenty of food, and you'll get a worm the size of a hose. And if any of you are already ordering tickets to Australia, hoping that there you can catch a gorgeous bait, bear in mind that this worm is considered endangered, and it's not widespread. Otherwise, it would have burrowed all over the continent. It hides exclusively in the Bass River region. By the way, there the giant is so strongly revered that they even organize various festivals in his honor. And in general, even if you put aside its amazing size, the worm itself is quite fragile. If you just carelessly touch it with your finger in any way, it will soon be sent to glory. There is a theory that exactly for the same reason the worm builds its burrows only at a depth of about 6.5 feet. By the way, here is a fun fact on this topic. The presence of worms can be determined by the characteristic noise that occurs when they return to their dwellings. You don't have to be a giant to be considered strong. Later, I'll show you the strongest animals on the planet. Eagle. Let's start with the less strong ones, and first up is the eagle. Although it's less strong only in today's episode, and in many respects this is my opinion, objectively it's the strongest of the flying birds. Eagles are very large, have incredible eyesight, and developed instincts that allow them to soar beautifully through the air and hunt effectively. I would call the South American harpy eagle the strongest eagle. Firstly, it's the largest eagle on the planet. Some individuals weigh 20 pounds, which is a lot for a flying bird. Secondly, harpy eagles specialize in very large prey, which are usually larger than themselves. These are usually sloths and monkeys. And harpy eagles do not just kill them on the ground and eat them there. They fly up to the prey, grab it with their powerful talons, and fly with it through the air to their nest. The prey can do nothing about this grip, even if it chose to slip away so that it could crash to the ground and not become the harpy eagle's dinner. It wouldn't be able to do so. The harpy eagle's grip is dead in every sense. Zebra. If the eagle still looks logical in such an episode, what's the zebra doing here? you may ask me. After all, this is a herbivorous animal. In fact, an ordinary wild horse with stripes. What's special about it? Actually, zebras are not as simple as they seem and are extremely interesting. But today, I'd like to say just one thing. They are the best in kicking technique among animals. More specifically, the zebra has the strongest leg kick in the world. It's about 3,000 pounds. This is much stronger than the kick of even the best MMA fighter. And given the zebra's hard hooves, such a kick is completely fatal. Or at least it can end up with a brutal knockout. Many animals, including lions, have already known this. When predators hunt zebras, these striped taekwondo fighters kick them with all their might. Not even a strong kick can knock out a lion, or at least knock it down. And if it's very strong, the zebra can break the huge cat's skull. Atlantic Goliath grouper. This fish looks like it's always in a bad mood and ready to eat someone. That's not far from the truth. The Atlantic Goliath grouper, also known as the Jewfish, is a very large fish. It can reach 8.2 feet in length and weigh up to 1,000 pounds. Of course, average individuals are smaller, but this doesn't prevent them even from attacking sharks. Yeah, the Atlantic Goliath grouper is one of those fish that does this. What's more, Atlantic Goliath groupers very often feed specifically on sharks. Not great white sharks or tiger sharks, of course, but that's just because of their size. The Atlantic Goliath grouper has a lot of strength, and if it were several times bigger, it would definitely be a nightmare for great white sharks. We shouldn't relax either. Atlantic Goliath groupers do not like divers and often pounce on them. There's nothing particularly good in this, because nobody would like to face the aggression of this powerful predator. Anaconda. When you look at the footage featuring anacondas, you begin to doubt that this snake is real. I mean, a slithering creature weighing over 220 pounds with a length of up to 16, 20, and according to some reports, 33 feet? It's too much. But nature knows how to surprise us. Officially, the anaconda is not the longest snake. The reticulated python is considered to be one. But in terms of weight, it is the undisputed leader. Anacondas are very massive and strong, and being non-venomous animals, they use their body to neutralize their prey. The squeezing force of the anaconda is 227 psi. Imagine that you put a kettlebell on your fingernail. This is approximately how the anaconda squeezes its prey. Only it's not just one fingernail that suffers, it's the whole body. With the help of its deadly rings, the anaconda can easily break even a crocodile. If you remember how strong crocodiles themselves are and what strong armor they have, then you begin to fear the anaconda even more. But these snakes don't attack humans. Almost. It can only happen if one pisses off an anaconda a lot or tries to put them on like a necklace. So far, all the animals I've shown you have been strong in one thing. The anaconda is strong in squeezing, the Atlantic Goliath grouper is strong in attacking sharks, the eagle is strong in lifting heavy prey, and the zebra is strong in kicking. The next beast, however, is good at several aspects at once, and that is the hippo. A real menace of Africa and a terror in the flesh. And that's how you can call this giant. By the way, despite the fact that hippos are very large, and from the looks of it, they're very thick, they're surprisingly fast. In the water, hippos swim at a speed of 4 to 8 miles per hour, and on land, it accelerates to 19 miles per hour. To run away from it, you need to be a top athlete, otherwise there's no chance. When the hippo catches up with its prey, it begins to use its teeth. Hippos are facultative predators, that is, they eat grass, but on occasion they can eat meat. But it bites not only to eat, but also to finish the enemy off. That's what these territorial creatures do to intruders. When you watch how hippos crush watermelons and pumpkins with just one bite, you understand it's definitely worth staying away from these chubby creatures. By the way, they don't even always need teeth. An average hippo weighs 1.5 to 2 tons, which makes it a tank in the animal world. It can just run and hit a car and leave a big dent in it. Or it can just lightly hit a boat from underwater and almost flip it over. It's creepy to even imagine what it would do to a human in such a case. That's about it. Write in the comments which farm seemed the most unusual to you. Our next videos will be no less useful for you.